Hi everyone and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to learn about the select statement in Microsoft SQL Server. We will be covering the following in this video. Basically, what is the select statement, what is the syntax of the select statement, and what are the different select statements in SQL that you can query. So let's get started. The select statement is basically used to retrieve data from a database. It is returned in a table. And a table consists of rows and columns. You can regard the rows as a record, and you can regard the columns as the field name. So basically a table with rows and columns. It does not manipulate the data in any way. So if you think that it's going to overwrite the data, edit the data, or delete the data by any chance, no, it's not going to do that. It's simply going to extract the information that you have specified in your query or in your statement, and it's going to put it as an result output in a form of a table. The select syntax is as follows. You will begin with the select statement over here. So you'll write the select clause and then you'll specify the columns. You can specify as many as you want, followed by the from clause against the respective table name. So it's going to be select column name from the table name. You will end the statement by a semicolon. Now this becomes a statement. And as you notice that this statement comprises of clauses. So the two clauses that it covers is the select clause over here and the from clause over here. So this altogether this becomes a statement, and each of these is a clause. Now the select and the from are keywords, which are special or reserved words which tells the data to take some actions. Basically, with these special words or reserved words, you won't be able to use that within the SQL or for some other needs. It's a reserved words, so basically you won't be able to use it for any other purposes. Now, during the course of your SQL Server journey, you will come across the other reserved words, which we are not covering in this video, but as you go along in this journey, you will understand that there are other reserved words as well that is being used by the SQL Server. The semicolon basically tells the database that a statement has ended. It is not mandatory, but it's just a good practice to have that in your statement. Now let's go into our SQL Server Management Studio and let's try to run different types of select statements. Now the database that I'm connected to is the AdventureWorks Database. The AdventureWorks Database is a sample database provided by the Microsoft, which you can download from their Microsoft site and restore it in your database. Now if you like to learn how to do this, I will put the link of the video tutorial that I prepared in the description below, and I'll also put this in the suggestion of this video. So if you like to know how to do that, just refer to the description. You will probably find a link to that. The first statement that I want to show you is going to be the basic standard statement that we saw from our syntax. So it's going to be select from, and now if you would like to know which tables to refer to, then click on the database, click on the plus on the database. You'll see a list of all the folders. Under the tables folder, click on the plus and you'll see a list of tables that is provided in this sample database. The database that we're going to focus, one of the tables that we are going to focus on is going to be the human resources.employee table. Now you can type that yourself, but if you want, you can also drag and drop this. And you have that table selected. I prefer to mention the table first, because then whatever values that I'm going to type, it will try to look for that mainly from that table that I've specified first before it tries to look for it in throughout the SQL. So if I want to understand what are the columns there, then what I'll do is I'll just click on the plus icon over here and I'll see a list of columns that is visible. So maybe I just want to have business entity. I'll just select that, comma. Now you'll put a comma to continue with the next column that you want to identify. So suppose I want to have job titles, and very quickly I'll just add agenda as well. Now what I'm doing is I am actually using the tab on my keyboard in order to select the field. So suppose if I put gender, and if I want to select gender over here, I'll just click on tab. It's just fast and I'm used to it. So if that's a little tip for you to speed up your SQL queries. Now once you have done this, the last statement will not have a comma. If you do that, you'll see a red underscore which will say that this is a syntax error. So statements, the last statement that you will be putting in this select will not have a comma. Once you're done, execute this and there you go. So you can select specific columns from your specified table and just execute this. So this is the basic standard syntax that you see, and under the output, as you see over here, it will come as a row and columns as a table. Now the next statement that I want to show you is selecting all the columns in that particular table. To do that, you will select, and this time I'm just going to put the entire table name myself, and under the select, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put asterisk. So select asterisk, which means all from this particular table. And when I highlight this and click on execute or F5, it's going to show me all the columns in that particular table. Now if I want to see all the column names, for instance, then this is a quick tip. I'll just hover my cursor on that asterisk and it will show me all the column names. So the next select statement that I want to show you is going to be like a string output. So for example, if I put select and I'm going to put a string over here as an output, hello world, and if I execute this, it will execute whatever text that I have written. This statement is actually useful. I've used this in a couple of reports that I've designed in the past years. Let me show you what I mean. So if I want a value to be displayed for all the employees, a static value to be displayed for all the employees, and suppose that value is not in the column or in the table, then what I can do is I can just set it as a string value. So for example, if I just copy the above query that I selected and put a comma and I'll add this string, hello world, and then if I execute this, you will notice that there is a specific string which is mentioned over here that is copied across all the employees. Now as I had created this, you have noticed that since this is a field, this is something that I've created myself, it does not have a column name to it. Now in order to add a column name, what you can do is you can just put an as alias, and then you can specify the column name that you want to give to this. So maybe I'll just put world over here, and then I can execute it again, and you'll notice that this is this has a column header of world showing over here. One thing you also notice is I've used a single quote over here. Now if you are putting a string value, then it needs to be covered with a single quote. Now the alias that I've used onto that particular string value can also be used onto the rest of the columns, onto the existing columns that you have. So for example, if I want to, if you find this a long name, if I want to shorten this, if I want to use a simple name, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put an alias as S and then maybe BEID. Now if I highlight this and if I try to execute this, you will notice that the column header name has been changed to BEID over here rather than picking the business entity ID. Therefore, you can use S as an alias to rename your column header to your own preference. Right, so now let's assume that you wanted to put a title with a space in it. So for example, let me just copy this and put it on a new code over here. So maybe you wanted to put an alias as job title, as job space title, something like this. And if you try to run this, what you'll notice is you'll get a syntax error under the title. The reason because you have a space, and you cannot have a space when you are putting a column name. So there's a workaround to this. You can either put this into a single code and execute this, because it's a string value. So the space is regarded as a string value over here. It will be correct. But alternatively, what you can do is you can put square brackets on it and execute it, and it's going to give you the same value without any syntax error. I personally prefer to use a square bracket. In that way, the red text is not shown to me. I find it easy to read on my eyes as I go along, but it all comes down to personal preference. One of the other statements that I wanted to show you is how you can run specific or distinct values. So for example, if I want to see all the distinct values of the gender field, how can I run that? So it's very simple. If you will just put select and you'll add another reserved word as distinct, and then you're going to put the column that you would want to show the distinct value for, and in this case it's going to be gender, and I'm just going to put that from, and just copy this and just paste it over here and run it. So now you'll be able to see the distinct values for that particular column header. One of the other things that you can do is using arithmetic operations on your select statement, basically using mathematical operations, which is plus, minus, divide, times, and modulo on your select statement. So for example, let me run all the columns for this particular record, and in this particular record you'll see there's a vacation hours and there's a sick leave hours. So let's just suppose we want to add these two together and display it out. Now to do that, let me just use my select statement, and I'll put the from, and I'll specify the table over here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my vacation hours, and then I'm going to select my sick leave hours, and then on top of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these two. So I'm going to put vacation hours, I'm going to put the plus operator, and then I'm going to put sick leave hours. Now if I want, I can execute this, but it will not come with any header name. So if I want to give it a header name, I'll put total leave hours 1. And if I run this again, you'll see a header and the values over here. So you can do that. Now suppose if I want to multiply it, then I can also multiply it. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it, and I'm just going to put the multiplication there, and I'm just going to change the name to maybe 2, and I'm going to run this, and there you go, it does the multiplication as well. Now let's see if it can do a division. So let me divide this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another expression within the same expression. So let me just copy this, paste it over here. So multiplies it, and then I'm going to put divide by 2 and put this as 3, put a comma. All right, so now that I have two expressions over here, it's always a good practice to put brackets where it's applicable, because you can either read this as vacation hours multiplied by sick leave hours divided by 2, or you can read this as vacation hours multiplied by sick leave hours divided by 2. Basically what the SQL will do, it will follow the bottomless operation. So it will be brackets, O for order or power, root, D for division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So it's always good that you specify it so that you are not in the wrong track. So if I run this, and you'll see the output comes in an integer. Now the reason why the output comes in an integer is because it's dividing it within an integer value. So as you can see, this is I'm dividing it by 2, which is an integer value. Now if I have done divide by same thing, but divide by 2.0, and if I would have executed this, then you'll see that it is displaying the decimal value of it as well. So if you are doing a division, if you're doing it with an integer, the output will be the int, and it will discard the decimals. And if you are dividing it with a decimal value 2.0, then the output will be given to you in decimal values. So this was some of the different types of SQL statements that you could have written. Yeah, there you go. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. If so, please do give a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.